Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to First Person, the show where we meet the most interesting people in IT and learn from them what makes them tick by focusing only on their firsts. I'm your host, Matt Egan, asking you to enjoy, like, and subscribe wherever you find us. And if you're an interesting person in IT, let us know. You might be the next first person. The next voice you will hear will be today's guest. He is Derek Ashmore. Derek is an author and presenter. He spends his time helping organizations unlock real value from cloud platforms using AI, cutting costs, improving security, achieving greater performance and availability. From that, you will be able to tell Derek is definitely one of the most interesting people in IT. We are delighted to have him as a guest on First Person. So, Derek, welcome. And first up, what is the first thing people should know about you?
Um, Great question. I usually tell people that I learn for a living. That's what I do. Um, I take time to give clients the benefit of those learnings and the people I work with the benefit of those learnings. But the way I look at it is I learn for a living. And I have been doing that throughout my career. All
I
right,
love
ever since I started in a mainframe COBOL DB2 world through all the miscellaneous gyrations and transformations that I've made over the years. Um, I guess what ends up happening is after a few years in one space, I guess I get bored and I something else.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I can take you through the trail, but I mean, I've migrated from mainframes to client server development to case tool development to relational database administration to Java development and architecture. In fact, even wrote a couple of books on in that space in, in my time, to the cloud, and then to artificial intelligence. So
Okay. Always learning. Well,
always
that makes
learning.
me that makes me even more interested to have this conversation, Derek. And this is a trait we notice in successful people. But yeah, let's go into our first section, which we call first things first. And this is where we like to get to know about our guest by understanding some of their first times. And you've kind of trailed this, but what could you tell us, Derek, about your way in? Tell us about your first job in this industry.
That is interesting. My first job was actually for Continental Bank, which no longer exists as an entity. In college, I actually studied business or operations research. All right, so I was intending to be somebody that figures out how long traffic lights are and at different intersections and that kind of stuff. And the first job I got at Continental Bank, they stuck me in a training class. This is back when they didn't expect people to know how to code. They were expecting to have to teach them. And basically, that class, at the end of that class, they figured out whether you're going to go the accounting route or whether or not you are going to be a programmer. And I suck at accounting. So, so basically, and as it turned out, I lucked out.
Yeah.
I turned out to have an aptitude um, for application development and coding, and appeared to learn that skill set very quickly. Although I did have a couple of comp sci classes in college, but I didn't major in that. Um, and so I really lucked out. I consider myself very lucky uh, from that perspective. And basically, that's where I learned all my rookie mistakes, as far as how to deal with corporate politics, as far as some of the more soft skills that you need in corporate environments. And guess I'm either lucky or klutzy, depending upon how you look at it. But I made my 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 corporate political mistakes early and learned from them. So
Okay.
um,
I
in a
mean,
learning mode kind of thing, I don't have to repeat lessons very often. Yeah.
yeah. One of my bugbears is the idea of luck versus good fortune, right? Um, like it may have been good fortune that you were given the opportunity, but clearly, you had some aptitude for it, right? And you were also able to recognize I could be good at this. This is the thing for me. But I wonder how you got from there to where you are today, right? You've already trailed this. There've been lots of changes. There've been lots of different iterations of Derek's career kind of thing. What takes you from that initial point of, hey, it's coding or accountancy, I'm in coding, to drive through this incredible career you've had.
Well, as it turns out, I'm not without, I won't say wrong turns, but turns I didn't necessarily take advantage of. Given that I started with a bank at that point in time, if you were going to climb up the corporate ladder, as it were, um, you basically were incented at that time to get an MBA. All right.
Right.
And so I dutifully did that. I basically applied and was fortunate enough to get into a top tier MBA school and started down that path. Um, and somewhere in that time frame, I started working on a client server development. I'd already migrated off of mainframes to something else. And I started working with a independent consultant, and they turned me on to the fact that Derek, you have talent at this. You have other options. You do not necessarily need to climb the corporate ladder. And he educated me as to what the world of independent consulting is like, what the options are, what the costs and the benefits are. Very level-headed kind of individual, and he basically acted as my mentor as I made the transition from corporate life into consulting, which um, I guess really is corporate life, but it's a little bit different flavor. Um, I find that consulting basically fit me and my attitude towards learning and learning new things because you basically it's your job to do that that kind of realm.
Yeah.
So um,
So you've got a kind of
basically,
mindset where you like to learn new things. Presumably, you like to move on from project to project. But again,
right.
it feels fortunate, but in your gift that you were able to recognize that. I'm really one of the questions we often ask about this stage of the conversation is about a great boss or a great mentor, and it sounds like at this stage, this is where you found somebody who recognized in you
Yes.
that you were going to be better or maybe brilliant, right, at being a consultant who moves from things to things rather than staying in this corporate situation.
Yes. Yes. I was like I said, I was fortunate, and that's not the first mentor I've had. So
Okay.
I actively seek to that. Someone once told me that if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Hard agree. But what does it mean to you then to have that kind of mentor figure? What are you looking for? Is it as simple as that? Is someone who can tell you something you don't know, maybe?
I look at it as a two-way street. Some as I've evolved, some mentors I have gotten more than I've given,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I try not to make my exchanges that one-sided.
Yeah.
I try to, I try to contribute to the conversation as well. And
Yeah.
um, normally what happens is I, I, I look at it that everybody has things that they do well and things that are challenges to them, right? So normally I look for people who are complementary, right? So oftentimes um, there are places where I can help others out in addition to they can help educate me on different points. Um, so just so that I can get better, I try to take a constructive attitude towards everything. You
Yeah.
know, don't,
Yeah.
um,
No, sure.
that's just my nature. So
So it's been a continual thing to have those mentor-mentee relationships as you've gone along, which I'm guessing, like in a consultancy role, like you're not always part of these larger organizations, but you've still successfully found people to mentor and people to be your mentors as you've gone along through your career.
that's right. There has, in fact, just about every consulting engagement that I've had, and I've had well over 2 dozen at this point,
Mhm.
right? Probably more like 3 or 4 dozen. But anyway, um, just about every consulting engagement that I've been at for any length of time, I retain, friendships and associations with the people that I've worked with. Um, and if somebody needs help or needs assistance, I always work on the theory that goodwill will come back to me
Definitely.
at some point. So I always volunteer to help others, and in those cases where I need help on a specific topic or whatnot, normally somebody's willing to help me with that.
Well, I always say this that like you should never feel you should never feel bad about reaching out to the person in your network because you never feel bad when someone reaches out to you, right? Like I'm always happy to help somebody because that is how it works, right? And I would think um, that certainly working in that consultancy role. I mean, I think it's the same in any role, honestly. And I've worked for the same corporation for 22 years, right? But I think in that consultancy role, it's especially important that you're always adding value and giving because you're going to be able to reach out and get the help you need when you need it. Tell me, Derek, have you been so you've been consulting ever since like that first corporate job?
That is correct. I spent a couple decades as an independent consultant, and some of the people that I've worked with um, ended up being we were all doing complementary things, and we got the idea that, well, if we joined forces,
Mhm.
uh, uh, we could achieve better things than we could individually. And so we got together and we formed Spiritus Consulting, which is who I work for
Yeah.
these days. Um, basically, we're a boutique cloud consulting firm that has migrated on to things now that most corporations are already in the cloud. We're past the days of like the early adopter kinds of phases, and we're helping people deliver a lot more value to their customers.
So I guess you've almost got the best of all worlds there, right? Because you've got the independence and the I guess what I'm hearing is that the need to constantly learn and develop and try new things, but you're also part of a collective, which means you have that kind of not safety net, but that community around you where you can rely on other people to figure things out collectively if required.
That
Derek,
is
this is
that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
well, I was just going to say this is all sounding really rather too positive, and you've already trailed some of your failures. So if you don't mind, I feel we need to move to our second section, which is where we really dig into those failures because we're not just here for the good stuff, right? And I suspect in your lifelong learning, you've learned a lot from your mistakes as you've gone on. So I wonder if you could tell me something about the first mistake that comes to mind, or the first big mistake that you've had professionally, and maybe if you did learn something from that.
Um, that is a good question. First of all, let's define failure. I look at life as an experiment. All
Hmm.
right. When people hear the word failure, they think that definitely means a bad thing. To my way of thinking, that is something that I did that doesn't work out,
Hmm.
and I should not do that again. That doesn't mean I go back and criticize myself because I chose that in the first place. I don't have a time machine, right? I
Yeah, yeah.
can't and make a different decision. So I would say early on, I made some political mistakes in my first job,
Right.
and as a result, I didn't advance as far as I thought that my skill set should have enabled me to advance.
Hmm.
Uh, so I took a look at that and I did some internal introspection and figured out, okay, this is what I did wrong, and I should not I should not um, do that again. Um, I guess another mistake was not um, having us or actually having a side conversation with somebody in these days where we're doing slacks and teams, and accidentally saying something that was embarrassing, what I thought was a private message that ended up getting displayed because the person was presenting at the time,
Yeah.
and
Oh.
I I learned very quickly that that is something I need to not do again.
Yeah. The interesting thing about that, Derek, you wouldn't believe, but like in an interview earlier in this series, somebody else said exactly the same thing, right? Like the whole thing, like failure, don't really accept that, right? You try something, you make a mistake, you learn from it. But the one thing I can never come back from is, in her case, it was she'd sent an email to the wrong person, criticized. So there are some things, it turns out, that you can just learn not to do them. I wonder if
Yeah,
because
and there's another failure I would mention.
yeah.
Um, Basically, I was fortunate enough to spot the whole microservices trend early on, and in fact, actually, one of my books focuses on microservices back when it was early, and it was in the early adopter phase, and I very quickly realized that microservices basically had limitations. In other words, everything shouldn't be microservices. Everything doesn't deserve to be microservices.
Mm.
Um, and I guess I hit that trough of disillusionment before everybody else did.
Right.
And I think I could have, now this might be a positive or might, it would definitely be it definitely was a business failure for not sticking with that scene
Right.
longer when it finally caught on, because I could have capitalized on it much more than I did.
But I think even just recognizing that is a thing, right? One of
Yeah.
the questions that I sometimes ask at this point, which is kind of like that, but I wonder if you might have a different answer, is if there's a, in this lifelong learning approach that you've taken, is there a first time you can think of where you realize something that you knew actually was wrong? Like, has there ever been a point where something you thought you knew turned out to be wrong, or I guess in your case, if you're continually learning, things adapt and evolve anyway as you go.
Um, there has never been something that I've done that I looked at and said, "Okay, this was perfect. I couldn't have ever
Yeah, fair.
better in any way, shape, or form." That just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Um, I guess one of the wrong turns I think I made in the days of early Java development, there was an acknowledged need to be able to map Java classes to relational database tables. All
Okay.
right, and this was in the days before Hibernate was a thing, right? And I think the decision that I made back then was to take a look at the metadata of a database and the tables in it, and dynamically generate Java source that pertained to that, right? So that basically eliminated the need for um, application programmers to actually code things like SQL statements and those kinds of things. I think the need identification was like spot on. It definitely was a need. There's a reason that Hibernate got invented and it existed. But I think there were more elegant ways for me to address that need than the code generation tactic
Yeah.
that I took, and I didn't realize that until later. And Hibernate came along and basically took the game away. So
But it's not like to your previous points, right? It's not none of this has ever been like a complete full stop failure. It's very much a yes, but rather than no kind of thing. And I
that's right.
guess the lesson from this is where you came in at the beginning, right? Which is if your approach and your attitude is that you're continuously learning from every environment, from every experience, from every person, you almost can't fail because you're going to continually develop and evolve your approach and your knowledge.
Yeah, and I guess the lesson I kind of learned from that and a couple other experiences is that there's this whole time thing to what's
Mhm.
a good idea and what's not,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I think I was right in addressing the need, but I think I was like at you know a couple of things where I was right, but at the wrong time. Or
Yeah.
and I think I was very quick to exit a couple of things where I shouldn't have been. Microservices being one of them,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
So
yeah, we live and learn, I guess. Derek, this is super interesting, and I really appreciate the benefit of your wisdom here. I'm going to move on now because I want to make sure that we sort of keep to our normal time scale. And I'm going to move on to a section that we call quick fire first because we want to get to know you beyond your professional persona and veneer. We want to find out about the real person, and we do that by using a piece of proprietary technology that I built called the random question generator. Um, so, Derek, could you please pick a number between what are we at 1 and 14?
I will pick 17.
I said 1 and 14, I can go for number seven if that.
Okay. You said one, and all right. I misheard you. Let's go seven. Let's go
Number
seven.
number seven. Okay, please tell me something about the first place you would go if time and money were no object. Right, you can just drop everything and go there anywhere in the world. Where would you go right now?
Where would I go right now? Think if I could just, I think if I could just drop everything, I would basically go to Europe. I'd start off in Amsterdam, and
Uh-huh.
I think what I would like to do, and um, expanding the time horizon a little bit.
Of
One of
course.
my dreams is to be able to go live in interesting places for, like, say, 6 or 9 months, um, travel light, and then basically go to another place.
Yeah.
and lived there for 6 or 9 months or something like that. The goal for me would be to be able to get past all the tourist stuff
Mhm. Yeah, 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 yeah,
and
yeah,
be
yeah.
in relationships and get a sense for how the people live,
Yeah, yeah.
beyond the tourism aspect, right?
I
Not
suppose
just visit, but
in a weird way, you've kind of had that experience professionally through consulting, right? Because you get to be a part of the team, but not forever. And kind of, I sometimes think, I've spent a lot of my professional life commuting to the US, and I've spent in my life, I've spent like more than a year in Boston, but I've never lived there. Just worked there for weeks on end, and I sort of feel that's a privilege as well because you get to see like the differences and the similarities, and people are the same everywhere but they're also different everywhere, without to your so getting beyond the tourist to your point, without actually fully committing to a place. That's a really cool answer. We've never had that before, Derek. I appreciate that. Could you maybe pick another number between 1 and 14?
certainly. Let's pick 11.
Number 11. Okay, so this is, and we never know what we're going to get with this question. Could you tell me something about the first record you can remember buying and what it meant to you?
The first record that I remember was my dad playing some Janis Joplin
There you
uh,
go.
music for me. Basically, when I was a young kid, "Take a Piece of My Heart." Uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Tune.
I remember that song, that and The Doors.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
basically, were um, things that I was introduced to early. I evolved rather differently from that.
Okay.
These days, I tell people I listen to dead people because I do I listen to a lot of classical music and I play classical music, so I
Oh, very good.
basically do 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 mostly that. But if you look at my record collection, it's all over the place.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing, right? Surely, I think. Like, I don't believe in guilty pleasures. I believe in pleasures, right? And there is something definitely to be said for those kind of childhood memories of your parents playing. What I mean, and to be fair, your dad's coming out of that quite well because I think his tastes. I mean, it could have been a lot worse, right? Um, but really, really interesting. Like the dichotomy between where you started and where you are now. That's cool, but you still have those fond memories of that music from childhood.
Yes.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Derek. Hard as this is to say, we're actually moving into our final section now. This has been such an interesting conversation. But I'm really interested to ask you, Derek, what would be the first piece of advice you would give to someone who's just starting out?
Um, I guess what I tell people who are just starting out, and in fact, I even told my son this, although I don't think the lesson has resonated yet. Um,
Give it time.
but when you first start out, what's more important is you getting the experience and you learning and adding to your skill set. That is more important than the money.
Mhm.
Although I remember starting out with a comparatively small salary and understand the whole concept of living hand to mouth is no fun. I get that.